Commission hearing number 63 of Wednesday, 27th May, in case 006 Paul Michaud, case 0080 José Chantange, and case 379 VW3.
And it was my error, but we should also be calling case 0147 Jerry Sofa.
And case 047 Jerry Sofa.
Can you please call the next witness?
Mr. José Chantange.
That the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Swear me God.
Thank you, Mr. St. Ange, for appearing before the Commission today. You are the complainant in this case, and the Commission invites you to set out your complaint before it. Please take your time in setting out your complaint, and if you need to adjourn at any time, just let us know, and we're happy to accommodate you. But the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me this time here this afternoon to try and redress an injustice that happened many, many years ago to my old dad. And it pains me a little bit because today I realized that when he had the injustice done to him, he was my age. I am today, 63. And he had to live with it until he died at the age of 90. Anyway, the complaint today is about, it's regarding the government and mainly Mr. Albert René. And just a brief history. Albert René was a very close friend of my dad in the old days. But we found out at a later stage that he used my dad and the family. My dad was a grower. He was the biggest exporter of vanilla from the Seychelles. And many an occasion, when the check came in from the States for the vanilla, that went straight to Albert René for the party, for the SPUP. And my father was asked to join his government. I think it was 2 years after the coup d'etat. And he became a minister in the government, and he lasted, I think, 3 years. He resigned in November 1982, and because he could not stick to what was happening to the government. They were against all the principles they had worked for. I'll give you a little brief about what happened.
Can I ask you what those principles were, the principles that they were working for?
My dad was a people's person. He wanted the population to do better. He wanted some injustices that were happening in the old days to stop, because there were some injustices during the colonial days, and he wanted that to stop. And he became a good friend of Albert, and he became, at one time, he was vice president of the party. Knowing Mr. René very well, because I grew up with him around our house, he taught me how to swim, he taught me how to fish, but I lost respect for him in the early days when he took presidency. He's a man who never wants to lose. He came out with a new law in the Seychelles protecting turtles. And I was on Ladig at my dad's hotel, and I was helping my dad. And he came out, and I think he was spending the day or the night, I don't remember. But the first thing he did was he asked me to please get him some turtle meat. He came out with the law to stop killing of turtles, and yet he wanted me to supply him with some turtle meat. And I told him I don't do it, and it's against the law, and no way can we get turtle meat. But as I said, he's a man who always wants the last say. My father was a proud owner of a small hotel on Ladig known as Cabane des Anges. The land on which stood was part of the original St. Ange family plantation. It was his pride and joy, his only source of income after resigning as a minister, and finding out that he would not be receiving the pension a minister should be receiving. In 1983, the president, Albert René, informed my dad that all hotels on Ladig would be government-owned from now on, and as a result, the government would be acquiring Cabane des Anges, but compensation would be paid. And there was no ability for negotiation. The compensation was for $1,554,260.90, and that was to be paid over 5 years. Fast forward 12 months, no other hotels on Ladig had been acquired, apart from Cabane des Anges. And the government had unsold it to a new company, l'Union Estate Company Limited, for 2.336892, which is 782,000 rupees more than he had paid to Carl Saint-Ange. Cabane des Anges was then leased to Grégoire Payette's company, the owner of Grégoire's Island Lodge, the biggest hotel on the island, and a good friend and confidant of Albert René. The rent was for 360,000 rupees per annum, which less than 12 months later was dropped to 96,000 rupees per annum for 5 years, 120,000 rupees per annum for a further 10 years, and it is not known what the current rent is now or if there is any rent payable. It is rumored that Albert had shares in Grégoire's company, be it formally or informally. So was the ruse of acquiring the hotel for personal gain or merely to help a friend acquire a hotel for cheap rent with the added bonus of getting rid of the competition? Either way, there is no justification. My father was forced to sell his hotel. Cabane des Anges should never have been taken by the government. The land should be returned to the Saint-Ange family and future rental payments paid to the heirs of Carl Saint-Ange. What we are seeking, as I've just said, is a transfer of LD 332, but I believe that there's new numbers now because it's different portions, to the estate of Carl Saint-Ange to be distributed amongst his heirs, and for current lease arrangements over LD 332 to be transferred to the estate of Carl Saint-Ange for all future rentals money to be distributed amongst his heirs. The timeline of events, and I will give all the documents as we go along. 20th of May, 1983, the land is transferred from Carl Saint-Ange to the government of Seychelles for a purchase price of 1.554 to 60.90, which is to be paid in installments over a period of 5 years. The land was known as LD 332 and is 7,369 square meters in size, and that is beachfront land. 5th of June, 1984, the government of Seychelles unsells the land known as LD 332 to a company called Union Estate Company Limited, represented by Guy Morel, for a further price of $2,336,892. 16th of July and 7th of September 1987, l'Union Estate Company Limited leases the land to Grégoire's Management Company Pty Limited for a period of 12 years for an annual rent of 360,000 rupees, which covers LD 332 and also LD 128. 7th of November 1991, Grégoire's Management Company Pty Limited surrenders the lease over 332. 7th of November 1991, Union Estate Company Limited releases the land to Grégoire's Management Company Pty Limited for a period of 70 years for an annual rent of 96,000 rupees per annum for 5 years. 120,000 rupees per annum for the following 10 years, with rents payable remainder of the term to be negotiated in 5 years increment. 4th of April 1995, Grégoire's Management Company Limited transfers the lease with the consent of Union Estate Company Limited to Grégoire Payette personally. 16th of September 1998, Gregoire Payette, transfers the lease to Gregoire's Company Pty Limited, trading as Ladig Island Lodge, and Gregoire's Management Company Pty Limited. It does not appear this was consented to by Union Estate Company Limited. I have all the exhibits for you here, Madam Chair, and I will hand that over. Exhibit A, which is a transcription of LD 332 from Carl St. Ange to Government of Seychelles. Inscription, terms of payment for transfer of LD 332 from Carl St. Ange to Government of Seychelles. Exhibit C, transcription, transfer of LD 332 from Government of Seychelles to Union Estate Company Limited. Exhibit D, transcription, lease over 332 from Union Estate Company Limited to Gregoire's Management Company Limited. Exhibit E, transcription, surrender of lease over 332 from Union Estate Company Limited to Gregoire's Management Company Limited. Exhibit F, transcription, lease over LD 332 from Union Estate Company Limited to Gregoire's Management Company Pty Limited. Exhibit G, transcription, transfer of lease over 332 from Gregoire's Management Company Limited to Gregoire Payette. Exhibit H, transcription, transfer of lease over LD 332 from Gregoire Payette to Gregoire's Company Pty Limited, trading as Ladig Island Lodge and Gregoire's Management Company Pty Limited. I've got a further document, and I will put the name on a piece of paper of the person who supposedly had shares, which was probably not registered. And I've got a document where they fell out with the owner of Ladig Island Lodge, and they wanted their money out of the company. Mr. Payette did not have the money, and he had to borrow from a third party. And I've got from the company's search where there is a charge, a floating charge of 35 million rupees, which was borrowed so they could pay that person out. This is naturally hearsay. It's Radio Bamboo, but there's a lot of truth in it. And I'll put the name of the person that received that money, supposedly. Madam Chair, we've been a family born in Ladig, raised in Ladig, and we are proud Digwa. And it was unfortunate that Mr. Rene robbed the family of that asset. And now we're trying to rebuild what was taken. We have family now in the hotel industry in Ladig. I myself came back from Australia 4 years ago and have set up a small little resort on Ladig and trying to relive what was taken. I'll give you those as well. That is it, Madam Chair, and I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for setting that out so clearly. So my first question is, when your father resigned from Albert Rene's government, how did that impact his relationship with Mr. Rene?
I think there was some animosity, definitely. And that built up, we carried on building up, because I came on holiday, I forgot the date it was, but it was just before one of the elections. I came on holiday, I was living in the UK, and my father got a phone call from Mr. Rene asking him for his support over the elections. And I was so pleased to hear the response he got from my dad. And he told him in no uncertain manner that he was never going to receive his support any time now or in the future. And even told him, you have the cheek to give me a ring after what you have done, trying to destroy my life.
So yours was the only hotel that they took, and the government didn't own or operate it, they just sold it on to somebody else?
Yeah, there was no other hotels taken at all.
Bonjour. Juste une petite question de clarification. Après Multiparty 1993, votre famille n'a pas fait aucun request pour nothing.
Non, nous tu connais qui ça tu point losing battle. Alors nous connaissons que monsieur René avec son clic qui était. Alors nous avons décidé pas faire rien. Et mon papa a toujours dit laisse-les un jour, bon Dieu, il apprend son revenge là. I must explain why I did my presentation in English as well, because over the whole period, my family is now all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, UK, and some of them don't speak Creole, so I wanted them, they're probably following, I wanted them to follow what was happening.
Mr. Santos, good afternoon. You said that following the announcement by Albert Rene for compulsory acquisition of the hotels,
Yes.
your father decided to sell the hotel. Did he have the choice to seek for any buyer, or did
No.
he has to sell it
He
with
had to
Albert?
sell, Albert Rene said he was taking it,
Okay.
and which was a bit of a lie, trying to pacify my old man. He said, because of our relationship, I am offering you some compensation. But the next one I'm going to take, there won't be any compensation given.
Okay, so if he has not choose to take the compensation, Albert would have taken the hotel.
He would have taken it.
He wouldn't have a choice to seek for any buyer.
No.
Okay.
And I have recently spoken to Dr. Maxime Ferrari, who was at the ceremony when they opened the hotel again. And he told me that Albert had a beeline for that hotel, and he took it.
I mean, your father wasn't looking to sell the hotel at
Not
the time.
at all, no. That was his only
Yeah.
income after he resigned from government.
Now, you've told us that the hotel was leased or sold to l'Union Estate.
Yes.
Could you enlighten us as to who were the shareholders in that company or what that company was doing?
The Union Estate had just been taken over by government, which belonged to Mita Meyer. And I believe the company first started as Lady Island Lodge. And then it changed the name to Union Estate. And then somehow Mr. Payette got the name of Lady Island Lodge.
Could you, maybe for the benefit of people who don't know the situation in Ladig, explain to us what l'Union Estate was like?
Union
No.
Estate, as I said, was owned by a German gentleman. He was very proactive. He had imported the best machinery for agriculture to Ladig. And he took in Mr. Payette as an advisor, confidant, or whatever it was. And but to be betrayed a couple of years down the line, and because Mr. Rene had his eye on Union Estate in Ladig.
And you say it was then passed on to Ladig Island
Ladig Island Lodge.
Lodge.
Yeah.
Do you know who were the people involved in Ladig Island Lodge?
Ladig Island. In the beginning, it was Guimauel, who was the main person, and the directors was I believe Patrick Lablache, Simon Testa. I have that document which I've given to Mr. It's in the file.
Thank you.
Petite clarification, M. Sentence. Pour mon compréhension, que fait l'entité du mot, la Digue Island Lodge avec Union Estate.
Oui.
Juste pour clarifier un peu.
Union Estate est toujours Union Estate.
C'est oui.
Somehow, je ne sais pas comment il est arrivé, les autres ont commencé, de s'appeler la Digue Island Lodge.
Voilà.
Mais ça n'est pas last, in tout le Union Estate après.
Voilà, à cause, si ne demande pas qu'il y a une certaine
Et ça, c'était
confusion.
l'union.
À cause, il y a un hôtel pour M. Grégoire qui la Digue Island
Ça,
Lodge.
c'est séparé.
Voilà,
C'est séparé
c'est ça.
totalement.
Pour amener sa clarification, à
Oui,
cause,
oui.
il y en a Union Estate avec l'hôtel.
C'est ça.
Oui,
Non,
oui.
Grégoire's Island Lodge, c'est next door to Cabane des Anges.
Voilà.
Il y a Cabane des Anges, après il y a un vacant piece of land qui est pour mon papa, après il y a Grégoire's Island Lodge qui vient de la Digue Island Lodge.
On connaît Cabane des Anges, parce que 81 m'a tiré là-bas.
Très bien.
Qui est arrivé avec sa vacant lodge qui est pour papa?
Monsieur Payet in build un Begalolo. Et écrase, là, tu prends, tu écrases tout bon bégalo qui cabane des anges, tiens, et tu fais un nouveau A-frame qui la digalange, tiens, mais ils maintiennent sa main building, et ils ont fait ben la chambre là, de mon quoi, petit, il y en a pour 8-9 la chambre dans la main building.
But you said, Monsieur Saint-Ange, good afternoon. You said you thought maybe with the acquisition that one of the reasons might be to get rid of competition.
Yes.
Might there be other reasons?
No, I think there was something in the back of his mind to take it and probably for his own benefit. I believe it was for his own benefit.
In
And
what
at
ways?
the time in Ladig, there was only three hotels.
Three main hotels, yeah.
That,
But the idea that was sort of presented was the government's going to take over running all of these hotels for the benefit
correct.
of all of the people of Seychelles.
Correct.
But it was eventually sold to another person to benefit his personal interests, him and those people that had shares in his company.
Yeah, correct.
Bénéfice commission, vu qu'on a ça mandat pour représenter Banhez, il y en a combien d'autres à peu près?
Pardon?
Il y en a combien d'autres à peu près?
Banez, il y en a 6 now.
6, ok. Merci.
After what happened, the purchasing of Cabane des Anges by Albert René, would you agree that the income from the properties help Mr. René to enrich himself?
I personally believe so myself, yeah. Because there was the hotel, restaurant, hotel, bar. I believe it was 8 rooms in those days, plus big section of staff accommodation, plus another section that had started being built for more bedrooms.
So would you say also that the acquisitions of other properties on the name of President René has been very helpful to enrich the family members?
I honestly believe so, yes.
But doesn't the René family have a holiday house next door to?
Mrs. René has a house next door to Ladig Island Lodge. And to show how things were going on in Ladig, that belonged to a private person, that little piece of land. And these people put an application to build a house on it, and they were turned down. They were said the land was too small, and you could never build. And Mrs. René purchased it at a reasonable price and put a 3-story house on it.
What happened to Chateau Saint-Cloud?
Chateau Saint-Cloud is still there. It belongs to my sister, and it's run as a hotel.
It was never acquired.
No, that was not taken.
But was it built after the Cabane des Anges, or?
Yeah, it became a hotel after Cabane des Anges, yes. Yeah. Because my sister was in Ladig, and it started with one of the brothers, and then my sister came back from South Africa with her kids and set up Chateau Saint-Cloud.
That was your grandfather's house.
It was my grandfather's house, yeah.
And what year would that have been when she set that? What year would that have been when your sister came back and started that hotel?
That would have been in the late 80s. That would have been the late 80s, early 90s. Because even the main house, the main family house, which was Chateau Saint-Cloud, was in disrepair because my father could not afford to reinstate the house as it was. And I left the Seychelles in 1983 and gave my dad my house to live in at Sans Souci. He had a house to live in free of charge because he could not afford. And at a later stage, when things were really going bad, I managed to sell the house, and my father moved back to Ladig in a little hut where my hotel is at the moment. And then he was supported by the family. The family had to support him in his old days.
You mentioned that you would want the land to be returned and the rental paid to the heirs of Mr. Saint-Ange.
Yes.
You have never asked for the whole thing to be given back to you.
Well, we'd like the property, the land and the hotel returned to the family, but naturally, Mr. Payet has a lease on that property, and we have to look at his interests as well. Maybe he should retain the lease, and the rent, a market rent, should be paid to the family.
Market value rent.
Yes. Naturally, I don't know. I've tried to look, but I could not find out how much rent, if any rent, is being paid at the moment.
But from what you have explained to us, the property was taken, well, bought, so-called, from your father, went to l'Union Estate,
Yes.
back to La Digue Island Lodge. It's like taking something from one pocket
Yeah, this is why
and putting it in the other pocket.
Yeah, I brought all the transcriptions because it is odd that it moved to one person, but in different companies. I think sometimes BS baffles brain, so maybe that was the intention of moving it around the one person. Or it could be a reason that that section of the lease was somebody else's share in the big picture.
And the person who was the recipient of all the different transfers is still the one
He's still the one who's
holding
got the lease on it at the moment.
Yeah.
I think, if I may, you think that that lease was conscionable. You think that was a lawful, conscionable lease to be given in the circumstances of this property?
Well, the whole episode would be unconscionable conduct on our part. And if the whole thing could be reversed, we'd be happy to reverse it. And as a family, we'd be happy to reimburse what was paid and get that property back in its proper entity. I'll give you another list because it's just building up your ideas of. I left Seychelles, as I said, 1983, and with virtually nothing with my in-laws, and we'll be in front of you at a future stage with that case. And we were struggling in London, and I got a phone call from Mr. Gérard Waro, who asked me. I still got the letter from him where he said, "I believe you have left Seychelles a very unhappy and disillusioned young man. I would like to meet with you and try and work something for Seychelles." He invited me to a couple of his conferences, which I attended, and I left London for Bristol after a conference, and by the time I got to Bristol, I got a phone call from my dad to say, I got a phone call from Albert to say that you are working against him in England, that you are part of a plot to overthrow him. That worried me because I still had family here. My father had brothers and sisters here. So I took it upon myself to phone Mr. René. I picked up, I had his direct line, I phoned him, and I said, "Mr. René, I believe that you believe that I'm working against you in London, that I'm part of a group to overthrow you. I want to let you know that, no, I am not part of a group, but yes, I am attending conferences because I want to know what's happening back home." Straight away, his reply was so quick. He said, "José, I'm happy that you are going to those conferences. You must know what's happening back home. And I'd like you to infiltrate it a bit more. And are you working at the moment?" I said, "No, I'm not working." He said, "You don't need to work. Just infiltrate that NPR and I'll make sure that I take care of you. You don't need to work." And I said, "Mr. René, I'm not a politician, and that's something I'm not going to do. I am not going to infiltrate to let you know what is happening on the other side." And that's how quick he was. And I said, he said, then he he wanted to cut the phone. He said, Jose, thank you very much. Nice to hear from you, and hope you keep in touch.
He might have missed an opportunity.
No, I would not lower myself.
So again, from that little story, do you think there might have been any vindictiveness in the property being acquired in that way?
No, the property was already gone, yeah, by that time. I was in the UK, I was in the Seychelles. I left in 1983, and the property was taken in 83 as well. It was probably a few months apart.
Okay.
But he was, as I said, I lost respect for him in the early days. But he kept coming to Ladig, kept coming to our place in Ladig. And to show how the guy liked to see people suffer, I took a ride with him in his boat called Alva to go from Ladig to Mahé. And Mrs. René was always a bit seasick, Mrs. Geva René, and she went and sat in the cabin. And I believe it was Alva. And Mr. René was an avid fisherman. He loved fishing. And he started trawling from Ladig, went by Prale towards Silhouette. And Mrs. René said, Albert, how far away are we? He said, we're nearly there. But he was still heading towards Silhouette. And poor Mrs. René was being sick downstairs. He didn't care. He had a smile on his face.
But, I mean, your father was singled out, and he did have a connection. I mean, he was disloyal at the end of the day. He resigned and abandoned,
Yes.
right? And he appears to be singled out. It was only his hotel
Yes.
that was taken.
And the only small hotel as well, it was only 8 rooms. It was a tiny little place.
So was your father involved in the coup d'etat?
No, he wasn't. No.
And once the coup had been implemented, he was happy?
He was happy. He, as I said, he wanted to see a change, and he believed in Mr. René, like Mr. Ferrari that was listening to him yesterday, like Dr. Ferrari did, and became very disillusioned afterwards. And whilst he was a minister, I myself spent a lot of time going to my dad's office because I was finding out things in the public, and I would go there and say, Dad, this has happened. He said, no, it can't be. I said, Dad, this happened last night. For example, the landing of military vehicles coming at night, moving somewhere else. And he said, Jose, it can't be. I said, it is. And he would pick up the phone and phone Albert. And Albert would tell him, Carl, stop listening to gossip. And he would say, you see, Albert just responded. It's not true. He was conned all the way.
So it's quite a big decision to resign from a position. Did he talk to the family about, I'm going to resign, or he just came home?
That came a bit fast. I believe that it could be, maybe he was pushed as well. There could be that as well. It was himself and Philbert Loiseau on that day. And in that same period, there was Mathieu Servina as well. But the whole thing was he resigned, but he may have been pushed because he was going to resign anyway.
Did your father support the one-party state?
No.
No.
No, he didn't. He was also a good friend of Mr. Mankam. Mr. Mankam used to visit him quite a bit, and they had their differences.
No, I think it's very clear. Yeah.
Any more questions from the front bench? Thank you very much, Mr. St. Ange. It's very clear. We understand. Thank you for preparing your documents so well,
It's a pleasure.
giving us a timeline. It makes it very easy for us. We will do some investigations. I think we're all interested to know who was benefiting financially from taking the property from your father. So we will be investigating that further and following any other leads on your case and working on your determination. You can contact your investigator at any time for updates.
Yes.
And if there's anything else you think of that you think we should know about, please get in touch with your investigator.
Thank you very much.
But we have no further questions for you, so unless you have anything you would like to add.
There's nothing to add, except for Madam Chair and Commissioners, you're doing a great job. I'm very proud of you all. I follow it regularly and I keep going back, and my wife would say, it's midnight, go to bed, and I'm still following it on my phone. And I know this room like the back of my hands. And thank you again, and thank you for the opportunity to come before you. And I'll be seeing you again in a couple more cases.
Great, thank you. We
Thank you
really
very much.
appreciate it, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we will adjourn now, and we will be back at 3 p.m.
All right.